A cloud covered Mount Sinai, and the glory of the Lord settled on it. For 6 days the cloud covered the mountain, and on the 7th day the Lord called to Moses from within the cloud. He stayed on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to bring me offerings from what the Egyptians gave them: gold, silver, bronze, blue, purple and scarlet yarn and fine linen, acacia wood, olive oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil and for the fragrant incense. Then have them make a sanctuary for me, and I will dwell among them. Make this tabernacle and all its furnishings exactly like the pattern I will show you. Have them make a chest of acacia wood, 1.1 meters long and 68 centimeters wide and high. Overlay it with pure gold, both inside and out. Cast 2 rings for each side. Then make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold to go into the rings to carry it. This ark is to contain the tablets of the 10 Commandments which I will give you. Make 2 cherubim out of hammered gold for the ends of the cover. They are to have their wings spread upward to overshadow the cover. There, above the cover, between the 2 cherubim that are over the Ark of the Covenant, will be my presence. This chest, or Ark of the Covenant, as it was known, was the place of meeting between God and man. It was so holy that it was kept by itself in the most holy place. Tabernacle means tent. So the tabernacle that contained both the most holy place and the holy place was called the tent of meeting. The 2 parts were divided by a heavy curtain of blue, purple and scarlet yarn and finely twisted linen, with cherubim woven into it. The holy place was where the priests worshipped God each day at the altar of incense. To the left was 7-branched candlestick. To the right was the table of showbread. The tabernacle was enclosed within a courtyard made from posts supporting curtains of twisted linen. It was entered through other curtains made of blue, purple and scarlet yarn and finely twisted linen. Inside the courtyard stood the altar where animals were sacrificed to the Lord. It was hollow and covered with bronze with handles, so that, like the rest of the temple, it could be carried from place to place. God told Moses to order his brother Aaron and his 4 sons to serve as priests. They would need special clothes to give them dignity and honor. Aaron was to be high priest. Moses was told, "Bring a bull to the front of the tent of meeting and slaughter it in the Lord's presence. Take some of the bull's blood and put it on the horns of the altar, and pour out the rest of it at the base of the altar. Then take all the fat on the internal organs and burn them on the altar. It is a sin offering. The glory of God filled the tabernacle. The cloud of God was over it by day, and the fire of God every night. When the cloud lifted, the Israelites would dismantle the tabernacle and travel on through the wilderness. They would make camp and assemble it again. God's presence remained with them wherever they were. For the next 40 years, the Israelites wandered around in the wilderness. Finally, Moses was able to look over the land that God had promised them. But before he could lead his people there, he died. Instead of Moses, it was Joshua whom God anointed to lead the Israelites into the promised land. One day, Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do people say I am?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." "But what about you?" he asked. "Who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this Petra, this rock, I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it." Jesus warned them all not to tell other people. He then began to teach them that he must be killed and after 3 days rise again. Peter could not accept this and took Jesus aside to argue with him. Jesus turned, faced his disciples, and rebuked Peter. "Get behind me, Satan," he said. "You are not looking at things in God's way, but man's." Then he called the crowd to him along with his disciples and said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for me and for the gospel will save it." 6 days later, Jesus took Peter, James, and John with him and led them up a high mountain where they were all alone. While he was praying, the whole appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became white and dazzling. Suddenly, there were 2 men beside Jesus. One was Moses, and the other was the prophet Elijah. They also appeared in white and dazzling splendor. They were talking about his departure, the end of his mission, which he was about to bring to fulfillment in Jerusalem. Peter, James, and John had been asleep, but they woke up in time to see the glory of Jesus and the two men standing with him. As the men were leaving Jesus, Peter said to him, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not really know what he was saying. While he was speaking, a cloud appeared and covered them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. A voice came from the cloud saying, "This is my Son, my chosen one. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, they found that Jesus was alone. The disciples kept this to themselves and did not tell anyone at that time what they had seen. This event is called the Transfiguration. It is one of the major feasts of the Church and is celebrated on the 6th of August each year. It has a special hymn, or troparion. Thou wast transfigured on the mountain, O Christ our God, revealing thy glory to thy disciples, as far as they were able to bear it. At the intercession of the Mother of God, make thine everlasting light shine forth also upon us sinners. O giver of light, glory to thee. Questions. Question 1. How many things in an Orthodox church can you find that are similar to the things that God commanded Moses to make for worship in the Tabernacle? Question 2. Peter said Jesus was the Messiah, which means the Anointed One. We often use another term for the Anointed One. What is it? It begins with CH. Question 3. After you were baptized, what oil were you anointed with? It begins with CH.